Good evening. Tonight we watched the main event, was Frankenstein, also 1931, just like Dracula, but later in the year, just as iconic. But first, a word or two about the movies that led up to it. The first, we started with I, Frankenstein, which is a more recent movie. I forget the year. Aaron Eckhart plays Frankenstein's monster very handsomely. And the idea of the movie is that after the events of the novel Frankenstein, the monster is recruited into a supernatural uh, fighting evil team. They fight demons. They're mostly gargoyles, and it's not worth saying much more about that. The movie has a brief prologue with a little bit of exposition and then jumps right into Act 2 of the story. And maybe it's cool to look at. I didn't notice. But much more to our liking was Alvin and the Chipmunks meet Frankenstein. And that was a surprise because we thought we'd love I, Frankenstein. We love Aaron Eckhart. But it was cuter. It was funnier. It had some songs that were really on the nose. Just you don't expect to watch Alvin and the Chipmunks meet Frankenstein and think this song is a great song that children should hear. Which song was it? It was something along the lines of "What do you do when a monster comes in your room?" and essentially a song that the children watching it can sing to themselves and think, "Oh, I'm not afraid of monsters under the bed or in the closet anymore." Um, and it just does fun stuff with the monster, who is essentially um, a giant child, and the chipmunks who are further along being children have to teach it things like sharing and stuff like that. So uh, very surprisingly amusing, and then just hearing the chipmunks' voices brought me back. Um, I want to. I wish there was more. I mean, we've got Alvin and the Chipmunks meet the Wolfman to look forward to, and I think there's a Christmas special that I'm going to watch anyway. But I've been able to revisit Care Bears and various Nicktoons and Disney movies. I'd like to revisit more Chipmunks, especially that movie where they and the Chipettes have to race around the world. Um, that's not streaming anywhere to my knowledge, but Chipmunks, they can sell anything. I have decided, and they really sold that movie. I loved it. Which again didn't expect. Just thought this will be a fun distraction to lead up to Frankenstein. I might even have liked that better than I liked this movie. I remember it not being one of my favorites from the original 8 of the VHSs, and now I've read the novel 3 times. I possibly like it less. Of course, he's wonderful, and he's the reason to see it. Originally, Bela Lugosi was going to play the monster in this movie, just like he played the monster in Dracula. He didn't like all the makeup and prosthetics, and so Boris Karloff got a chance to make a splash. But the movie did inherit some of Dracula's cast, including Dwight Fry, who was Renfield in Dracula, played Fritz, the hunchbacked assistant to Henry Frankenstein, not Victor Frankenstein, Henry Frankenstein, and Edward Van Sloan played Dr. Waldman. He was Dr. Van Helsing in Dracula and Dr. Waldman in Frankenstein. Um, Kind of a similar role for both of them um, among the movies. But yes, Henry Frankenstein, not Victor Frankenstein. One of many changes, many unnecessary changes um, made to the story for the movie. I guess I have to condense it. I understand that the movie is an hour and 10 minutes long, and The Bride of Frankenstein, which I remember liking more, effectively, it's a sequel to the movie. It's also kind of the second half of the book. Um, of course, we'll see what I think of it after I watch it in a couple of weeks or whenever I do. Um, but just the I thought the abnormal brain joke from Young Frankenstein was a joke from Young Frankenstein. It is based on what actually happens in this, which suggests that if Fritz had just grabbed the normal brain instead of the abnormal brain when he was stealing brains, uh, the monster would have been just fine. And that's not what Mary Shelley was going for. Mary Shelley, by the way, is credited in the credits before the movie as Mrs. Percy B. Shelley, which I'm almost positive she wouldn't have liked, and I am completely positive would not fly in this day and age. Just one of the many bizarre things I noticed. I do like that they start with the grave robbing aspect of the gonna build a human story, but not as creepy as it. The movie should have been creepier, but it was more sensational, and I guess that's more cinematic. Although, again, these days, um, horror movies tend to go more for creepy, like your Get Out or It, the version of It, whereas the one from the '90s is a sensational. The one from a couple of years ago, more creepy. And that's why a lot of the things sensational is why a lot of the things that happen. Electricity, as is pointed out in this little booklet that I read that came with all the DVDs, is not how the monster is brought to life in the novel, but it is how he is brought to life in this movie and all subsequent movies. And this was set the standard. It, like Dracula, was based on a play, but as a movie, it set the standard for the look of Frankenstein, Frankenstein's monster. Can't make that mistake. And the how you depict how the monster comes to life. The character of Frankenstein, again, Henry, not Victor, so it makes sense that he doesn't behave exactly like he does in the book. In the book, as I read in a video that will appear, called It's ... Alive, where I read a passage from when Frankenstein brings the monster to life. He's very weirded out by his success, and he kind of creeps away. He doesn't sleep, and then he leaves. He doesn't want anything to do with it. In the movie, of course, he quite famously yells, "It's alive, it's alive," and gets tackled by Dr. Van Helsing and somebody else. Again, more changes. It's a fun movie to watch. Iconic scenes like the torches and pitchforks scene, the angry mob scene, but it's got its problems as an adaptation. My favorite adaptation, as I have noted in previous videos and on my blog, my favorite adaptations of the Frankenstein novel are the novel and movie versions of Jurassic Park. I don't think any of the Frankenstein movies capture the spirit of the novel or the arc of the novel as well as those as Jurassic Park does, and it is about something almost completely different, but with that one element that links them, twisted brilliantly by Michael Crichton and then Steven Spielberg. Let's see, anything else that I wanted to say about this? He's great. He doesn't actually have any lines. He just groans, as famously, like the monster doesn't speak. He just growls, and so he doesn't. He's got only mostly his body language to act with, and he does it beautifully. It's a performance that belongs in a different movie. This movie also speeds up the love story, so at least the beginning or the wedding is in this movie between Henry Frankenstein and his bride to be, and so again, it is what it is, and it can be appreciated for that. But the novel is not very long, so read the novel and watch different versions. There's the Kenneth Branagh, Robert De Niro version. There are versions other than that. I'm not an expert on because I've seen them, I just didn't care. And this one is, of all the versions of Frankenstein, this is the one that I would watch over and over again. And we'll see maybe one day I would do it. I'll watch it back to back with Bride of Frankenstein, which I probably did with the VHSs. Um, yeah, so I think that I just want to say about the novel because I didn't mention, well, I did mention the novel with Dracula, but Dracula is my favorite monster novel. But the novel Frankenstein is, in my opinion, the greatest novel that was ever written. And there's a trio of monster novels, and when I get to the third one, I'll mention its relation with them. But it's kind of a weird relationship because neither of those is my favorite monster story. But one of them is my favorite monster novel, and one of them is the novel that I consider to be the best novel ever written. And the novel that has the story that is my favorite monster story is, in my opinion, not that great of a novel. Much better in other forms. That when that story takes other forms. So I will leave it at that. The Mummy is tomorrow, and that one is one that I don't have clear memories of because I really loved the Brendan Fraser Mummy, but I didn't really understand the Boris Karloff Mummy. But now I'm a better viewer of movies, and so I should have an easier time with it. Um, and of course, naturally, I will say whatever I forgot to say about Frankenstein tonight. Um, so yeah, read Frankenstein. Maybe see some of the Frankenstein movies, and have a lovely midnight.